Hey guys, I'm Brent Phillips. I'm sitting down with Dave Cousins, arguably the greatest archer of all time. Absolutely the most winning archer of modern time. Yeah. If you're gonna be a bear, be a grizzly.
Yeah, it's like the first liar never stands a chance. It's like, you're gonna get in my face, you're gonna talk crap, and you're gonna kick my ass? Let's do that.
But you didn't stab anybody with a bow.
No. I've been blessed to win my share of tournaments across a variety of disciplines. It's
so that's not a misnomer,
no.
Right? Okay, cool. Kind of one of the longer guys in the game too, at the level you're at, right?
2023, this is my 28th year competing full time, so I've roughly been doing this 3 decades. I signed my first pro contract in 1995 when I graduated high school.
So you were 18, signed your first pro contract.
Yep.
And who was that with?
That was with a small company out of Utah.
Small company out of Utah, okay. And so how long were you with that company?
I was with that company for 15 years.
Wow, long time.
I usually don't do anything short term. I really believe in investing in myself and the brand investing in me and us growing together. I'd rather be someplace where the skill set that I have can be utilized to make products better that solve regular users' problems and make the sport more enjoyable and more accessible to everybody.
So that's Dave Cousins now, but 18-year-old Dave Cousins, not the same mentality, right?
No, totally different. I mean, when you're that age, you're a young buck, you want to go out and make a name for yourself, you want to pillage, you want to set the hills on fire, you want to win everything, and break all the rules doing it and do it your way.
So was that, you've traveled a lot internationally, did it start at 18 as, hey, pack your bags?
No, actually, I made my first world team 3 years after that in 1998.
Okay.
My first trip out of the country was 1998, was World Field Championships in Austria.
So what were you competing in mostly back then?
The beginning of that was mostly 3D archery.
Okay.
3D archery was kind of the rave and growing, and it's still prospering, very much so today.
Right.
I made a transition around about 97, 96 over to more target and field archery, just because there were aspects of those games that I felt really rewarded my skill set and the way that I think and the way that I do what I do and build what I build.
Okay, so what differs between like the skill set mindset between, let's say, a great field archer and a great 3D archer?
Well, to go back in time a little bit, to back in those times like the late 90s to early 2000s, really 3D, in my opinion, was a game that was won by the person that had the best ability to determine distance to the target and not much more.
So that was determining distance, no rangefinder, this is purely guesstimation.
By eye or based off body size, the familiarity with the animals and the terrain. You know, and the shooting part of it really wasn't as big of an aspect as it is now. Fast forward now to nearly 30 years later, and the top 3D guys are still some of the top actual archers on the field, where that wasn't always the case. So in the beginning, when I transitioned away from 3D and more into target, indoor target, outdoor target, and field archery, was to reward the skill set that I valued, because I put my time in. I assembled a mental toolbox. I learned how to use every tool in there. I built a form set based off biomechanical correctness. And
purely for target, not so much for range estimation.
Right, just the act of the act of like, how many of these arrows can I put in exactly the same spot every single time at every single distance?
Right.
Yeah, the craft of shooting a bow.
Yeah, trying to be as consistent or boring as possible, basically.
But to me, it wasn't actually boring. It was the thrill and excitement of, that's one arrow.
Right.
That's 2 arrows. That's 3 arrows. We're going to do this all day, every day.
And any tiny deviation puts you out of the box, out of the egg.
It can. I mean, but ultimately, like, we're putting things in place. Number 1, mentally. Number 2, physically. Number 3, mechanically, with gear and technique and tuning, etc. So that when we do make a mistake, we miss by less.
Right.
And sometimes a close miss is a hit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Or
it's just a close miss.
Or it's just like,
yeah,
boy, that was close.
An animal that runs into the woods, right?
Yeah, or an arrow in the back wall.
Right. Yep. So let's back it up. You didn't start target archery at 18. You signed your first pro contract.
No, I was pretty much a hardcore 3D guy that shot a little bit indoors and some field. But
were you a big hunter back then?
I was. Yeah, I was just kind of getting started because I lived in the Northeast in a rural area, so it was all whitetails. Yeah. That's what we hunted. Occasionally, maybe you'd sit on a bear stand and stuff like that. But it was
that growing up like 12 years old? Here's a bow.
Oh, right from the get-go. You see, the only archery influence in my family, really, before I went and did what I did with it, was my dad. And before that, there was nobody that did anything with archery. But we came from a family that had a rich heritage of spending time in the outdoors. That was our entire existence.
Like family line in Maine, because you're from Maine.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're like born, raised,
from hunting,
fourth
fishing to
generation or
everything.
whatever.
Yeah, it was just everything was, about gearing towards that fall season to go out and, do wing shooting, harvest birds, harvest ducks, geese, grouse,
Right.
deer hunting and stuff, and things like that to enjoy the outdoors and like build sustainability for the winter. It was, kind of that mentality.
Fill the freezer.
Yeah, that very much that mentality
So
where I was from. Yeah.
Was this like a 1,000-acre, factory farm, like silver spoon situation, or was this like dirt floors?
Dude,
Or
no.
what was this like?
No,
Somewhere in
this was
between?
just regular blue collar,
Yeah.
family stuff and
Middle class upbringing.
yeah, and hunting, just driving on the road and a piece of property wasn't hunted, and there's.
Oh, you would just go like.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the game.
kind of how the Northeast was.
Yeah,
is-
certain laws in certain places. If
Yeah.
it's not posted and it doesn't say posted by permission only, then you are legally allowed to hunt that property as long
Is
as
it
you would.
still like that, or is that just?
It is still like that,
Okay, that's
but
cool.
more and more now you see more and more land access restrictions. And luckily, a lot of it is posted by permission only. So that's at least encouraging the public to interact with landowners,
Interesting.
try to seek permission and just
So
let
do
them
they
know.
list contact info there typically, or you have
They
to
do
like,
have to
find the
legally,
house? Oh, they
yeah,
do?
but then
Okay.
it's still like a find the house type of deal. But
Yeah.
if somebody has a piece of property and they've gone through the trouble to post it properly and put their contact information, you go up and have a civilized conversation with them and they give you the sniff test, you're probably going to get permission.
Oh, that's cool. Is it still that feeling up in Maine now, where it's like?
In certain areas, yes, certain areas, no. In what I would consider our urban areas, like along the coast and around two of our bigger towns, where bow hunting opportunities abound just because of the population of deer, because of the influx of people and the deterioration of habitat.
Yep.
The deer haven't gone anywhere,
Right.
but access to them has gone. So
Yeah, unless you're doing urban archery, which is
if you're lucky enough to get
thing,
permission,
yeah.
because a lot of times that those coastal properties are owned, by people from away, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't want the deer, but gosh, they don't want you hunting them either.
Yeah, or they do want the deer. They want to
Yeah,
see them.
yeah, they love to see them until they hit them with their car,
Right.
on the way to go buy a latte, or they're eating their flowers or something like that.
Yep.
So yeah,
Makes
it's the
perfect
same
sense.
story in about every urban area, though.
All right, so grew up hunting, kind of everything though, guns,
Yeah,
archery, upland game, it sounds like, fishing as well.
Yeah.
Now you're a big fisherman.
Yeah.
Let's hear about it.
Fishing. I mean, to coin a term or use a term, fishing's my church.
Okay.
I used to travel all over the world and do quite a bit of bow hunting and stuff, and it got to the point I would rather spend 12 hours on the front deck of a bass boat than 4 hours in a blind.
Okay.
Because
you'd done it so much.
yeah,
at
and
such
it was
a
so
high
much like
level.
work. A lot of times you'd travel somewhere and you'd be in New Zealand, or you'd be in South Africa at a lodge, and you're on a hunt, and then you're all on a table, and the conversation kind of gets, bow hunting, what do you do? And you wear a lot of these logo gear, and then find out who you are, and then it's like, oh man, hey, would you mind watching me shoot a couple of arrows, or maybe work on my bow? And
Right.
man, I mean, it's like I'm spending just as much as you are to
Yeah.
be down here on
Oh,
this
so
hunt.
you were going on paid hunts, like you're just on vacation hunting in New Zealand.
Yeah,
and,
I wasn't getting any deals.
oh, man,
No.
So I was thinking you're there for work, like filming a commercial
No,
or something.
no,
like
this is-
we're doing here. But
No.
So this was just you being like, let's book a flight and go to
Yeah,
New Zealand.
exactly.
And that became to feel too much like work.
A little bit, but it also too, you got to realize, I mean, you are an ambassador for the sport.
For sure.
So
sure.
when you're called upon for that kind of assistance or somebody, you give them that time. I mean, half
Absolutely.
an hour of your time could mean so much to somebody and help them enjoy the sport so much more.
Right. And it could take it, not even talking about the logo on your hat or whatever the company is that is supporting you and you're supporting, but like you said, being an ambassador for the sport truly and giving those people a positive interaction.
Absolutely.
Well, they don't think bow hunters are a bunch of elitists, or which, we are, but for different reasons, when you can actually bring those people into the fold.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. So when you're out in the stand before you gave up on hunting,
Give up on it. We
didn't
pushed
give
back
up
quite
on
a
it.
bit.
So what was your favorite snack in the stand?
Favorite snack in the stand? Usually it's going to be like a jerky, trail mix, something like that. I would
Not
always.
gummy bears. Because you can go wherever you want now. This is your podcast. You
Yeah.
can go with beef jerky and be hardcore.
Most
or
likely,
gummy
most
bears.
likely, whatever I chose was probably the noisiest package to open at the most inconvenient time.
Yeah, and you had to have it right then.
Yeah, yeah. It would. Yeah, there would
Monster
always.
whitetail walks
You
out.
would
and you're
always
like,
get caught. You
gummy
would always
bears.
get caught off guard
Yeah.
You'd be like elbow deep in your backpack, rooting around, and it's like, oh crap. I guess we're doing this.
Yeah.
You don't see me,
And
you
then
don't see me, you don't see me, you don't see me.
Slowly put it away,
exactly.
melt it in there, and then.
Yeah.
All right, so we've gone forward to 18-year-old David Cousins. We've backed up like heritage through hunting, being an outdoorsman, getting into fishing. And now let's talk about the dirty. We've had 3 resets in career, right? 2 or 3?
2.
2, okay. This was gonna be the 3rd if you screwed this up.
It's well on the path to
right,
being the 3rd. I've got a feeling.
We're exactly, yeah. You're well on your way.
If you're not,
third
I mean,
reset.
if you're afraid to rebuild, you were just afraid to start. So, I mean, once you've started over a couple times, it's nothing to really be afraid of.
So let's talk about the first good one. It's my favorite one. And we'll go easy on it.
Yeah.
But I've heard there was a broken bottle involved and maybe threatening somebody's life. This is 20 years ago.
It all came down to a matter of trying to bring a situation to an end through an action that would gather a reaction that would cause to diffuse a situation.
Okay.
Nobody was actually going to get stabbed in the neck with a bottle.
So what you're saying is you saw a bad situation happening, and instead of diffusing it, you were like,
that was the best way to diffuse it.
we're going to elevate it to a level nobody wants to go to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly.
Yeah, it's like the first liar never stands a chance. It's like, you're going to get in my face, you're going to talk crap, and you're going to kick my ass. Let's do that.
But you didn't stab anybody with a bottle.
No, absolutely not.
So did you get beat up with a broken bottle in your hand, or how did this go down?
No. It was kind of the thing where all the lights came on, the music stopped. It was like,
and you were like holding it and realized what you were doing?
What is this? Like the Happy Gilmore moment. Whoa, what's this? I don't know.
Okay, so, but that didn't derail things entirely, right? So.
Well, that was kind of the beginning. What really led to like me having to rebuild my career in 2010 was literally a decade or better of a sense of self-entitlement.
Okay.
That you were absolutely untouchable, that you were the golden boy, you were the best there was.
Sure.
Nobody ever challenged you on or off the field. And at the time it was like, well, if you can replace me, you would have.
Right. Because you were just winning.
Yeah. But like on and off the field as well.
On and off the field.
Well, with the ability to promote and make impressions
Right.
and be personable, be charismatic.
Yep.
But at the time,
skills.
that came along with a whole host of growing pains with somebody that is, in their late 20s, early to late 20s.
Right. So you're still kind of figuring out who you were.
I mean, I didn't turn 30 until 2007.
And what year are we talking about? The first.
I would have been 33 years old.
You were 33, and then.
Yeah, but 33, and you've just enjoyed better than a decade of being.
So what
the
happened?
best,
Let's talk about like
best of the
nitty
best.
gritty, downhill spiral, we'll call it, for lack of a better term. Did all sponsorship kind of pull out and go,
No.
hey man, we've had enough of your shit? Or
No,
like,
not everybody, but quite a few of them
the
did.
big
And there were
ones
major,
did.
yeah, there were major sponsors, and I don't blame them for doing what they did.
Right.
They're like, this juice just isn't worth the squeeze with this guy anymore.
Right. So you were getting crazy. Did they try to pull you back and go, oh yeah, hey dude?
Yeah,
like,
no, I got letters and stuff. Quite often.
So they sent you like official letters?
Oh yeah.
Like, hey man, you're
Yeah,
getting
get a
way
letter,
out of pocket.
get a phone call, get on a plane. We need a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'd go to the meeting, they'd read you the riot act? Or
Yeah,
was
I
it
mean,
like,
you get a slap on the wrist, and you're good for a month, and then.
Yeah. So then you would rebuild.
I mean,
it.
that's the behavior of. I mean, to use a word, that's the behavior of an addict.
Sure.
You know?
Do you think you were just addicted to that success and like that
Absolutely.
feeling of like, I'm on top of the world, I can do whatever I want?
Addicted to the rush of it, and like the feeling afterwards of like
Right.
you're absolutely untouchable.
Do you think that you started doing the crazy shit off the field because on the field got boring? Or why do you think or do you think it was just like, I can get away with it, so I'm gonna do it?
Well, it's like in the beginning, anything like that, like a celebration after a big win, like
Right.
everybody's on board. It's like the awesomest thing.
Yeah.
And then
20 years
a
of it,
decade later of it, and it's like, we've had about enough wild Sunday nights
Too much.
with you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like, to kind of back it up a little bit, you started seeing that crazy success and you just went full Tiger Woods.
Yeah, because like in that time, and I get goosebumps talking about it, because in that time, and everybody remembers a time if they have ascended to a level like what was going on in the sports or business world or whatever when they were doing it, and they felt like part of that wave. Like during that time,
Absolutely.
Tiger was beginning his dominance. Lance Armstrong destroying the Tour de France. Boston Red Sox winning their first World Series in, nearly, I don't know how many years, like breaking the curse of the Bambino. So many big moments in sports where like I can kind of think back and look at. There was like a wave of excellence, and it was really cool to be a part of that,
Yeah, and so you were that effectively in archery, right? And that's what gave you, at a very young age, in your 20s, late 20s. Yeah. And so did you work with those guys ever? Or like, was there anybody like you and Tiger were hanging out at Hooters on the weekend?
No, unfortunately, okay. No. Like, I mean, this is archery.
Yeah. So it was like this cottage industry.
It's a fringe sport.
And compound archery, because archery is so segmented. You've got
with compound and recurve and barebow and stuff. Yeah, because I mean, compound, we're not in the Olympic Games. And that's like the first question you get hit with. You're going through an airport and they're like, well, what's that? Archery, that's a thing? And
sure.
Like, are you in the Olympics? And they're like, you have to explain this.
Well, now it looks like
potentially 2028, yeah, could be.
So how, I don't know anything about the Olympics. We actually looked at like, how do we get involved? And so we had to go down the rabbit hole of reading about it. But have you looked at what that means?
My approach to the Olympics in 2028, given at that point in time, I will be 51 years old.
Yeah.
I'm going to look to throw a saddle on the bureaucracy. Okay. Because if you can't beat them, milk them.
Yeah.
I'd love to be a national head coach or team manager for some emerging country.
An emerging country.
Yeah, exactly. An emerging country with an unlimited government-backed budget. Yeah. I'm your guy.
Right. Right. So is that where you see yourself throwing your hat in the ring, is in that coaching realm, or do you think you would try
metaphorically speaking, yeah. I'm like, as I move into this next phase of my career, I'm not going to say it's the last phase of the sunset of it, because there's still plenty left in the tank, but just like I reiterated before, sharing my knowledge, sharing my experience to help people enjoy this game better. Right. And if that's becoming the national head coach or team manager, or writing protocols and procedures to select and build national teams for that upcoming Olympics for, countries that are, potentially going to send athletes to those games, absolutely love to be a part of that.
Awesome.
Who wouldn't want to hire one of the best to help them build their team?
So do you think, like we talked about, the heyday for me was when you did have all of those greats, like, Tiger Woods, all those guys in that time that you were ascending up. Do you think the Olympics could potentially put compound archery back in, or into that light, not back into, because it's never been in that light, but do you think it could make it more mainstream and take it out of this, kind of small cottage industry?
It certainly could in ways, but in other ways, as a professional and understanding how certain NGBs, national governing bodies, and the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, work.
Yep.
I'll be the first one to say it. Compound archery in the games could be the death of professional archery.
Interesting. What makes, so you have to expand on that, because
sure,
what makes
and I
you
absolutely
say, hey,
will,
this
with
kill
pleasure.
it?
Because right now, as a sole proprietor, an individual, I get to negotiate directly with you for your marketing dollars, for what I bring to the table.
Sure.
Now, if we elevate to a point where we are an Olympic sport, you can be like, why am I going to answer phone calls and emails from 150 people that want to be on my pro staff, when I can just talk to the CEO or marketing manager from XYZ Archery Federation in whatever country, and for a pittance of what I would pay all these other people, I can own the whole team.
Sure. So you think it'll just change the dynamic of how
I think it'll totally change the
employed.
dynamic, because right now, let's go down the list of the world rankings. How many people in the world archery rankings on Olympic recurve in the top 10 are making a full-time living shooting sticks at a circle?
I have no idea.
Right.
To put
it's
a number
not
on.
goddamn many.
Yeah, it's not a ton.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought
But
process.
in the top 10 of the world rankings in compound, probably 7 out of 10 of them are just shooting a bow full-time.
Yeah, that's
and
all
they're
they're
not
doing.
getting that money from their national governing body or their Olympic committee. They're getting that money directly through their own efforts for what they bring to the table and what they're able to accomplish with the brands they work with.
So you think it's more of a free market approach?
Absolutely.
Benefits. That's an interesting thought process. So it won't kill it necessarily. It'll change the way that the business is done.
It'll completely change it. So it will be a matter of even less individuals making a full-time living at it. But you're all dancing for that dangled carrot. Oh, the Olympics. the
Yeah.
Olympics. In the Olympics, it's one event every 4 years.
Right.
And national teams, we're going to chew you up and spit you out
Yeah, absolutely.
because we don't care.
Yeah.
We don't care about, they don't, oh, here we go. Bring your flamethrowers because I'm going to take heat on this. National governing bodies don't treat their athletes like assets.
Yeah, of course not. It's not in their best interest, and they're
No.
looking out for their best interest,
Correct.
not the sport's best interest,
Yeah.
right? You see it time and time again, whether it's I'm going to not throw too many sticks, but athletes getting injured, not getting taken care of by the league or whatever it is, those sanctioning bodies never do it.
Overall operating costs of the bureaucracy for the average national governing body for a sport is way more than athletes are compensated with.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can say, yeah, if you win a gold medal at the games, we'll give you $50,000. It's
Right.
like, dude, it cost me $100,000 to get on the plane and go to work this year.
Yeah. So going back, you and I have talked a lot about you have had a long career as a professional archer, longer than most, where like that is your career.
Yeah.
4 years is kind of a long time in the game, right? Do you see that being a challenge for not just archers, but managing a team and saying, okay, if we want to be competitive, we have to have a deep bench for a long time? Or like, what's that like?
Initially, I mean, you're going to start with a really shallow talent pool. So it's going to be a matter of, rounding up and selecting your best 3 men and your best 3 women for a team of 6. But then the important part is you've got to put protocols in place to form a farm system to bring these other kids up into it.
Yeah.
But still be able to take care and reward the ones that are successful properly.
Yeah. So do you think that turns into A team, B team, or do you think that turns into regional teams competing in the U.S., or how do you think that feeds into the Olympic program?
I think for me, I would want it to be, regional teams, but ultimately you've got to have your A players, and you've got to have another group of shadow players that are pushing that A team.
Yep.
Because they got to know if they screw up, we have another team member that can take that spot.
Yep.
And then further on down the line. But, regionally, it would be great to have a system that works like that regionally we can select the best of the best, and then they move on to an even bigger region, and then it's the several national levels until you get to the national team tier. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But, yeah, you've got to initially, if you're starting with a startup in an emerging country with a new sport, you've got to be able to go out and select your best of the best, and not the ones that can just get it done, but the ones that have a track record of performing under pressure.
Right.
And then helping them foster those skills, develop those skills, and teaching other people those skills. So you can build a system and build a team.
Yeah. So in other sports you have like your field IQ or racecraft or whatever it is. What do you call that in the target world?
I don't really...
You call it the craft.
Yeah, I mean, it just for me is the whole essence of a craft.
Yeah.
Not just the physical ability to do it, but the mental toolbox to do it.
Sure.
And I would almost be more inclined to select archers or even athletes in general to be part of a national team for an Olympic squad that were really strong mentally.
Right.
We can teach you to shoot a bow.
Potentially.
Potentially, But
Yeah.
I mean, if you're an athlete from another field and you have a mastery of the craft of self-discipline, the ability to take, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, translate it directly into what you're feeling, what you're doing, you have the ability to replicate motor skill,
Yep.
I'll teach you how to shoot the bow.
Sure.
Unbranded.
So before, would you say the only thing you brought to the table was putting sticks and paper where you wanted it?
No, not necessarily.
You
But I
were
wasn't,
doing other things
Yeah, I wasn't leveraging enough of my off-the-field skills.
Okay.
The true stuff that's longevity in this game. Yeah.
And what is that?
True longevity in the game is the ability to make positive impressions, the ability to share a message, the ability to draw people to your game and help them find enjoyment in what it is you do, to be transparent in your message, your goals, what you believe in, the things that work for you.
Okay, that's 30,000 foot view. So is that, everybody's got, let's say, if you're a master in, even if it's, let's say you're a master in archery, you're a master specifically in compound archery. But if you got even deeper and you had to pick one thing, is it tuning a bow? Is it shooting the bow? Is it feedback in the bow? What would you say?
This might be a little too
Pinnacle
deep
for you.
for most people maybe listening, but the pinnacle skill is being able to control yourself.
Okay. But that's a very simple thing to say. So
Yeah, but
this goes back to if you are a master of something, you look at things usually very simply. So like I've never taken a bow out of a box and put it all together myself. You did that with me yesterday, and you could explain to me, who's not very intelligent, how to do all of the things to get that bow put together and shoot it very quickly. And that to me is true mastery, when you can look at something very complex, know every intricacy, and then explain each part very simply and how it all comes together. So you say that it's too complex. I don't think it's necessarily too complex. I think you just understand it very well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the ability to kind of filter out all the noise and the nonsense and provide a message that gets the core of the points across, so that somebody can be successful.
Right. So if you were going to say that one thing in shooting that you were the truest master of, is it your shooting form and technique?
I think it was
tuning the bow.
No, I'm just going to back to the ability to have total mental and physical control over oneself.
Okay.
To be
so
a better competitor.
that to all of these things.
Correctly,
so you apply
correct.
That.
But mostly in the competitive moment, to be a better competitor than whoever you were in a head-to-head match with.
Okay. So your ability to remain calm, if you will, when pressure's on was a big part of it.
The ability to focus on the right things at the right time, and also not be afraid to make minor changes to the process on the fly.
Okay.
And not be too rigid and stuck in a rut. Because it's like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
Yep. Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we went back, we've restarted the career, we've decided we're going to double down on what makes us great off the field as well. Yeah. Restarted the career, and you came at it with a different approach.
Yeah, totally different approach. I went to a company that had a very successful broadhead brand and some other smaller products, and they had developed a bow line. They had 2 models. I talked to their marketing manager. It's a personal friend of mine. Says, hey, is there a possibility for an opportunity there to come on board with you guys and utilize my network and my skill set and my performance on and off the field to, number one, help you refine existing technology, develop new technology, build a brand around that, and help source a team of assets on the field and use this as a brand builder.
Yeah.
And he's like, write me a proposal and I'll submit it to the owners. And that was a process that took about 12 months.
Oh wow, it took a year to.
Yeah, there was a lot of volleys back and forth because it's a family-owned company.
Yep.
So it's their money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to be sure that this was the right thing to do for their brand, the right thing to invest in with their money and what they wanted to do. And during that time I was actually shooting the bow and competing with it.
Sure. Winning
events, so that got traction. So that then, how do you ignore success? Now the phone's ringing, people are looking for these bows and wanting to know, who's this guy shooting your bow,
Sure.
So and it went from there, and that was 7 really good years working with a great brand. Really proud of some of the things we were able to accomplish there as an entire team. I mean, with that brand during that time, I got the last jewel in the crown of all the world archery titles. I won my gold medal in World 3D, with that bow and that brand. So being the only guy that's ever won individual gold, world indoor, world outdoor, world field, world 3D, world games, world cup.
Yep.
All 5 of those aspects. And I was able to seal, it was like a throwback to the beginning because it was it was unmarked 3D world championship.
Yep. Where you started.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Like back in that range estimation is
judging yardage and making shots. Yeah, exactly. So it was just kind of the whole coming together. So a lot of cool things were done during that time, and it also allowed me to go back and double down and really refine and learn a lot more new skills that would help me off the field of play.
Right. Training other people.
Training other people and bringing other people in to be brand assets and helping to build a team. Mm-hmm. And not only for me putting like my ego and my want to succeed on the field aside, but also trying to build a team of other like-minded people that was like, hey, there might only be 12 of us on this team, and it doesn't matter who wins, we all win.
Right.
And if one of us doesn't win, if enough of us finish really close to winning, then it's still making positive impressions for us.
For the group, not just the individual.
Exactly. Trying to build a group of people that would put the group or the brand above themselves.
Okay. Then you came to PSE.
And then we moved on to PSC.
Okay. And what drew you into PSE?
Well, see, the thing is, I'd always wanted to work with PSE throughout the years. There were several different occasions where PSE and I had been in talks to try to get something to work out. And just, the timing wasn't right, or from a business aspect, it wasn't right. Just some things didn't work, culture in the company or whatever. But, fast forward to the end of 2019, the time was right. It was a good spot for me in my career to make a move. PSE was in a position where they've always had a great bow. They've always had groundbreaking, industry-leading technology. But for whatever reason, as more brands kind of threw their hat into the upper echelon of bow manufacturing, PSE was always a great bow. But after it went from like 2 brands leading the race, like was Hoyt and PSE forever. That's all you shot. If you didn't shoot one, you for sure shot the other. There was nothing else.
Right.
If you were serious, there was nothing else.
And
then other brands have, entered the race in the last 20 years, and spent more money to be more prevalent in the marketplace, especially on the influencing side. PSE still always had a great bow, but our message wasn't translated very well.
Yeah, so PSE is putting all their money into research and innovation, which is the most expensive part of running a bow company. Is that kind of what drew you in, where you're like, well, maybe I can take what they're already doing with the great bows, and then how do we shout that from the mountaintops and draw more people in?
So they brought me in to help to drive that influence on and off the field.
PSE was already doing the hard work of building the best bows. You wanted to do the easy work of just telling people.
Well, and also wanted to win tournaments too.
Right. Good reason to come over. All right, so what's your favorite PSE bow now to hunt with, not in a tournament?
To hunt with? My last and current hunting bow is the Evol 34. And this week I'm hoping to get my hands on the new Mach 30, the all carbon riser. So, and check that out, because apparently that's our newest flagship carbon bow, 30-inch axle to axle, lightest all carbon riser in the industry, another industry first.
You're getting to shoot them before anybody else. You literally got to shoot it before any other pros did.
I did get to pick the best looking one out of the bunch.
Stole the best looking bow,
At your direction.
I said take the best one. We're the other ones here. All right, so are you going to hunt with that one this year, other than pigs in Texas?
Yeah, we'll definitely hunt with it. I'll take it back home, put it. Here, we're kind of just putting them together and giving them that first initial run. Really like to get it home in my shop, on my range, and get it on my draw board and get everything just set just right where I want it, and really put it through its paces. Because for me, that's going to be a real jump. Going from a platform that I'm very comfortable with, like a 39, 40-inch bow. Like I squeeze into a 34 to hunt with and still shoot it fairly comfortably.
Right.
But no, a 30-inch platform, for me, that's going to be a real shock to my system.
Sure.
As far as string angle and stuff like that, and how far away the peep is from my eyes compared to a conventional setup. So there's going to be a bit of a learning curve, but initially, as far as fit, feel, and finish of the bow, this is the first carbon riser I've shot that I actually liked.
Okay.
And I've had my hands on carbon risers throughout the years from other manufacturers, and I was like, yeah, it's cool, it's light, it's a platform that really doesn't provide enough stability to keep your cams where they need to be, in sync and on plane with each other, to really push the arrow straight forward and be really super accurate and forgiving. With the riser technology that we use, that DFC riser technology, it, in my opinion and what I've seen, it gives the most stable carbon riser platform that I've ever shot.
Do you think it feels stiffer, like it is?
It 100% most certainly feels stiffer, and there's obviously some engineering at play there to keep the top and the bottom of the riser doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
To keep the cams where they need to be to provide you stable knock travel both vertically and horizontally. But for the average person, it's going to be a feel thing. It feels X, exactly. For me, it's a little bit more of a deep dive. It feels this way, and this is why it feels this way.
So, backing it up a little, you're talking about taking it to your home shop, getting a tune.
Yeah.
You threw out that we were doing tailgate tunes out here.
We are tailgate tuning.
Yeah, so explain that process to me, though. You get a bow, a sight, a rest, all the accoutrement.
This is something that every red-blooded American bow hunter has done, is the old tailgate tune.
Yeah, that was the only way that I ever tuned before.
Right,
yeah.
You had your little tackle box, you open it up, and you got maybe some knocking pliers in there and some peeps, and you bolt your stuff on there, and you're kind of eyeballing center shot, and knocking point height, and get your rest set, and you're looking at your cam timing, and poundage, bury them both down and back it off till it feels good. And we'll get these arrows that I got, and I know they're about the right spine, and we'll just get them set up and just get them shooting.
Yeah, so how dialed do you think, I was watching you shoot stacking arrows yesterday on a tailgate tune. What's the difference in arrows downrange between the tailgate tune and the Cousins at home tune? What does that actually look like?
The amount of effort mentally and biomechanically that I have to put into it to get those results.
Okay.
And it's through taking steps mechanically with the bow, through optimizing the cam timing. You know, even though every bow we build, we cycle it, ensure it's, you know, in time. Of course, as a customer, you go in and get a bow from a shop, buy a bow. This is all stuff they're going to do for you. You know, they're going to time it. They're going to set your draw length. They're going to make sure your nock and point is set correctly. They're going to put a paper tune on it. We're not even doing any paper tuning here.
Yeah, we haven't done
We're just eyeballing down the middle, looking over my shoulder, and Darren's like, yeah, it looks like they're flying pretty good. At the end of the day, the shiny, pointy end is going in the target before the pretty
Well,
end
that's
with
why
the knock
I
on it.
ask, because if, in my opinion, as Bubba bow hunter, when the arrow hits the X, I'm like,
That's a
we
good
got
result.
a winner. That's
We
what
got a
you
winner.
want there. That's what else would you do? Right?
It's what went into it for me that got
So
it
you enjoy the
there.
process of tuning that bow, and
Yeah.
so you fiddle with your bows quite a bit, right? You're always tuning and fine tuning them to a degree.
Not always. Like I have a core set of things that I go through, and it usually gets it to a very good result in a very short amount of time.
Okay.
It's not a super, super deep dive. It's just the handful of things quintessentially that must be done
Yep.
to get the bow as a system to work with itself, tuning the accessories to the bow, then building, tuning, and selecting an arrow to match the energy that that bow is putting out.
Yep.
All at the end of the day to make us miss by less when we make a bad shot.
Got
That's
it.
all the tuning is in the world. So here's another caveat to that. All the wrench turning and all the paper tuning and all the bare shaft testing in the world won't help if in the moment you can't stay out of your own way and make a good shot.
Yeah, absolutely. That is actually what counts, right? In the
100%.
moment. Yeah.
100%. And if you look at like the ability levels in archers as they progress from the average recreational archer to a bow hunter to like an avid semi-competitor to a full-on elite level pro, there's a series of things that people look at and they place an order of importance on. And usually the emerging archery enthusiast or bow hunter is all about the gear.
Yep.
And then all about the tech, the tuning and selecting and paper, arrow flight, all that stuff.
Yep.
Thirdly, like putting in the right amount of time, doing the right things physically. And fourth, if any at all, some sort of mental toolbox
Now
to
you
build
say,
a shot routine.
so you're going like an execution checklist of like, okay, first I put the arrow on the rest. Last I smack the button and the arrow goes off the string.
Yeah, but like as you progress in like people's perceived ability levels, when you reach the elite level, we take that list of things I just listed and we completely flip-flop it.
Okay.
We spend the majority of our time and importance on a good mental toolbox and the right mental approach to each and every arrow in practice and in execution in tournament and in a hunting scenario. And then putting time behind the string, practice, building that muscle memory, ingraining those biomechanics under duress. And then, the tune. Is this thing working within itself? Is it pushing the arrow straight? Do I have the right ammo, etc.? Am I sighting my pins good? Do I have a good first, second, and third axis? And then fourth, we want the latest and greatest equipment, but we know if we don't approach the shot with the right mental fortitude, the right physical discipline and practice, and it's not set up for success, the latest equipment ain't gonna matter.
So you guys are effectively prioritizing working on the weakest link of the chain,
The areas
and then
for most
working
improvement.
to the strongest,
Yeah.
right? There's more variables in you
Right.
than the equipment, right?
100%.
And so working back all the way from there, where it's like the equipment's kind of a known entity as it comes out of the box. You, the shooter, have a billion things that you could do wrong, as evidenced by me when we go shoot. And you're working from there back, where it's
Correct.
like, okay, cool, we've eliminated most of the problems from the shooter. Now how's the tune? Now, if we get better gear, great.
Yeah.
The amateur goes the other way. They're
They
like,
do.
oh, Cousins has this amazing new Mach 30, I've got to get that.
Well, and here's the thing, it's like the gear is the biggest part of the hobby.
Yep.
That's why we're all in this, because it's all new stuff all the time. We're like, well, I want to test this widget out, and I want to test that widget out.
Sure.
And it's like everybody's kind of trying to form their own ball of wax, but that's the biggest. Like I get goosebumps talking about it. That's the biggest part of the hobby.
Right.
Is the toys.
Figuring out what exactly it is that
Exactly,
works
figuring
for
out
you.
the new toys and stuff. That's the geek part of it, because it's like, I think my job ultimately is to provide information and knowledge and pass on the practices of that so that people can take the limited amount of leisure time they have and get actual enjoyment out of it. Because nothing's more frustrating than you get a new toy, whether it's a boat archery toy or a fishing toy or whatever the heck it is. And you take the one weekend day you might get in a couple weeks because you got family commitments, work commitments, you know, whatever it is. And your whole day is not enjoyable because you can't make this thing work.
Yeah. Or you flew somewhere, drug your whole family or your buddies or whatever, and now you're in hunting camp. You hiked in and you're like, dude, I totally forgot to tune.
Yeah, and it's just giving you a not very enjoyable experience.
Right.
Now you're down on the whole thing. And that's not how we capture people long term.
Sure, yeah, it's not how we grow the community, right?
Correct.
All right, so I don't know the details, but I need to hear about the New Zealand helicopter story.
Okay, New Zealand red stag. So go down there to this red stag hunt, like do the thing and everything, and like, yeah, you know, we're looking at it. This is where we're gonna go look at the face of this hill, this mountain stuff. And I'm looking at it like, yeah, you know, how high, you know, tree line and all that stuff. This is New Zealand. It's pretty rad. I mean, it's like fucking Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it literally is Lord of the Rings.
Really, quite literally, it's Lord of the Rings. So I'm like, all right, well, cool. How are we getting up there? We hike it. He's like, no, we got a guy come with a helicopter. I was like, oh, cool. You know, like I'd never been in a helicopter before. I'm like,
you just shoot the bow right out of it.
Professional archery, baby. Yeah. Now we're in choppers. Yeah. We got this, right? So guy shows up with like a Toyota like Land Cruiser, you know, pickup yoke thing, with what I can only describe as would be a snowmobile trailer, basically a little flatbed trailer on the back with this huge like plexiglass bubble thing. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, oh, mate, it's a helicopter. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? He's like, nah, we do it all the time. He's like, it was like one of these like little ranch helicopters they used to like herd like cows and stuff.
Gyroscope.
Dude, it was like a gyro. It was not a little bird. You know, it was nothing. It was like, he starts putting this thing down. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, this can't be, like, this is a joke.
Yeah.
Like, is somebody gonna pop out of the bushes like, gotcha, you know, here's the real helicopter?
Yeah.
No. It puts this thing together and I watch it and it takes off. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna make a couple runs. We're gonna, you know, take the gear up and drop it off, and then we'll come back for, you know, for you and the outfitter. It's like,
so it's just two of you guys.
Yeah. Comes back down. We get in this thing, and dude, it's like, I mean, it's like getting in a phone booth. This thing is like, you know, and it's like shaking, and you have this little stick thing, and it's like, and there's like, literally, there's like bolts on the floor. I'm like, do we need this?
They're
He's
backing
like,
themselves out.
well, it's like, just roll. It's like, is this important? He's like, nah, we're good. It's like, okay. And I'm like thinking to myself, because I'm like, I'm no dummy. I mean, I understand a little bit about atmospheric pressure. I'm like, dude, I'm like valley floor where we left off on, it's got to be pretty high. Trees stop growing at usually like 8,000, 10,000 feet. I'm like, there's not a lot of air up there to hold this thing.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of start mentioning that to the guy. He's like, yeah, you know, it'll probably be okay.
Not what you want to hear in a helicopter.
No, but he's already made 2 successful trips up. I'm like, all right. So we get up there and we land this thing and we bail out. I'm like, dude, I'm saying to myself, like, no, we're done with that. We're done.
You're gonna walk out.
Yeah, so we do the hunt. We get a stag, get it down. He calls in on the sat phone, comes up, gets the gear, gets the deer. I mean the stag, comes up for me and the outfitter, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, no. He's like, what do you mean no? I says, I'll hike it out. He's like, you're not getting in? I said, no, dude, I'm not. I'm done. I'm done. He's like, that'll take you like all night. It'll take you 12 hours or so to get down. Are you crazy? I said, dude, it's New Zealand. There's no predators.
Yeah.
I'm good. He's like, are you? I'm like, yeah. And I just started walking. They're like, this kid's, what's the deal with this? And they take off. I got down by dark.
Yeah. Were they just sitting there waiting on you?
Well, no, I mean, I'd assume they'd probably gone to the lodge and like got dinner or whatever, because it was, you know, it was a good like 8-10 hours later. Hiking down.
And then they just showed up, picked you up. They're like, get in.
Yeah.
How often did they say that happened?
Say what?
That people were like, no, I'm not getting in your shitty helicopter.
I don't think they probably never ever told anybody that.
Yeah.
Because like you can't be the only person that had doubts about it.
Yeah.
But I'll be straight, that's the first, last, and only time I'll ever get in a helicopter.
And it was a legit helicopter, not a gyrocopter?
Or... they called it a helicopter.
Yeah.
I'm no aviation.
For sure.
I'm no aviation expert, but it was not like the helicopter I was assuming I would get in. It had to be like a little gyro-y thing. Like,
yeah.
Something you could have, like probably in the early 80s or late 70s, bought out of the back of Popular Mechanics magazine,
like
and assembled yourself.
Shows up in you.
Like just small enough that you don't need FAA approval to fly it.
Yeah. Seems legit.
Yeah. But no, never again. First, last, and only helicopter ride.
Awesome.
I'm good.
I'm gonna take it, my favorite question on this is, what is your favorite hunt that you've ever done? And I gotta hear a good story from it. Good, bad, ugly, what was it?
Probably for me, the most satisfying hunt that I've ever been on was, I used to come to Texas and Mexico and other places and hunt exotics quite a bit.
Okay.
Because it fit my schedule.
Yeah.
It's something I enjoyed doing. And I know a lot of people will knock it. They're like, oh, it's high fence, it's pay to play, pick your animals off a menu, go kill them. Yeah, well, you know what? That's something I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So come at me, I don't care.
Yeah, it's different strokes for different folks.
Exactly.
Like the hunting community is very interesting because it's very segmented. You've got rifle, you've got archery. Yeah. Then even within that, you've got West Coast, you've got kind of Texas
meat hunters, trophy
own.
hunters,
Yeah.
Guys that are chasing experience, that put in for decades and decades and finally draw points on a really crazy tag that's a once in a lifetime deal, and they go and they might not even get their animal.
Yeah.
But it's like everybody doubles down for their own experience. Well, I used to come down and shoot a lot of exotics, and I was on a quest to get like a trophy black buck antelope. I wanted, like a number 3 SCI black buck antelope.
Okay.
And I went to numerous places, and they're like, yeah, we got 22 to 24 inchers, yeah, come on down. And it was not until my 12th hunt that I finally actually really saw a black buck antelope that made book.
Yeah.
That was what I wanted to kill.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that was 12 hunts. I killed it, it was down in Mexico. And yeah, it was the 12th time. I had sunk probably a world record amount of money into trying to kill a black buck antelope, which is like a $900 animal.
Yeah.
maybe $1,000.
I think that's fantastic and fantastic for people to hear because you see so much the Insta-fluencers go out and every time they walk out, they're killing a world-class elk, right? Or whatever it is. And there's not a lot of truth in lending there to say oh, it took me 12 hunts of high fence ranch hunting to find what I wanted.
The quality of what I wanted,
Right.
But like I said, a lot of people are going to knock it, but it's something for a long time I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
You come to beautiful places like a ranch like the Four Canyons like we're at right now.
Yep.
And fantastic world-class amenities. It's the experience you're going for.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, so you're going to host this thing. I think we're calling it Behind the Peep, interviewing world-class archers that work with PSE. What do you want to get out of it?
What I want to get out of it is I'm hoping to have enough of a kinship and closeness with the people that I end up working with that I've known over decades so that maybe we can get a new, candid, more open approach.
Sure.
And get stuff out of them and get them to kind of, loosen the collar a little bit on the button down and really get some humanity and maybe a little bit of a connection out of it to really see and share what makes these people tick and what they enjoy, and to show our viewers the parallels between an elite level world-class archer or world-class bow hunter with numerous super slams under his belt, poised on the verge of his third, or somebody in another industry that's elevated and much more famous than we could ever be as a professional archer. To be able to draw parallels between them and our viewers.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things to me is all of you guys that are target archers, world-class target archers, are also huge hunters. So
that's really the heritage of where most of us all began, especially in the States.
Everybody started there in the States, right? Yeah. That's oh, you went out bow hunting and that's how you even got into archery. And they're like, oh, I actually kind of like just shooting this thing at paper too. And so you deviated.
It was through that quest for perfection of oneself.
Yeah. And it translates directly into hunting, right? the worst feeling, nobody likes talking about it, but the worst feeling is when you let that arrow go and you're like, I just shot this animal in the hind leg or whatever.
Ethically, I think you owe it to the animal and the heritage of the sport to be a more proficient bow hunter than the average target archer.
Sure.
You need to be able to handle yourself and master yourself mentally.
Right. Because you have all those atmospherics too.
Yeah, presents itself. Mechanically through being able to set up, maintain, and tune your equipment to full optimization, and then the physical practice of putting it to work every time you get a chance. Ethically, bow hunters should probably outshoot target shooters. Really, if they want to talk about taking it to the absolute pinnacle of ethics and respect for the heritage of the sport and the animal. The old pie plate should never be good enough.
No, it absolutely shouldn't, but there's a form factor there too, right? Like you talked about shooting a 40-inch axle to axle and then having to really go down to a 34-inch and now a 30-inch. And so there is some form factor there that guys have to work with. But I think holding yourself to that crazy standard is a great practice, right? Whether that's the guy who just wants to kill a whitetail on his farm every year, or if he's going to be chasing a certain class of.
I think every bow hunter should strive to be an archer.
Yep.
First.
Yep. That's a great way to put it.
And then, become a really good outdoors person.
Right.
In tune with the field, in tune with the animals. And then putting yourself where they're going to be, when they're going to be.
Right.
And practicing your skill of archery when the time presents itself.
Sure. Yeah. But becoming a great archer first.
Absolutely.
I dig that. Well, we've got some great archers lined up for this thing. We're
Yeah.
going to knock out a bunch of podcasts.
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't yet, like, subscribe, and check out the next episode, which I think is going to be Darren Collins, right?
Oh man, I can't wait for that one.
You and Darren go way back, so that'll be a good one.
We do. Actually, he tells me we go back further than I remember, which, okay. Well, I can't wait
I think
to dig
he's
into that.
inferring something there, so we'll have to dig it that way.
I can't wait, Brett.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you.